Alright guys, so welcome back to History Saver 1941, and yet again another episode from Georgia. We are still in the Savannah area, but today we're at a very cool location, one that you do not get to see often. This is the Tybee Island Lighthouse right outside of Savannah, Georgia. And earlier in this series you saw us at Fort Pulaski talking about the American Civil War and the bombardment of Fort Pulaski. Well, today we decided to come check out one of the oldest intact lighthouses in America. This thing is absolutely massive, and this is the Tybee Island Light Station. And it has an interesting history. The first lighthouse was commissioned by General James Oglethorpe in 1732. Okay, so during that time, of course, you wouldn't have the structure you see behind me the way it looks now. It was more of a wooden structure, and instead of a light, it had a flag at the top, a very large flagpole that would help signal ships in. Well, as luck would have it, right after they constructed it, a hurricane hit and took it out. So they built another, and then that one also took some damage, and then came the American Civil War after they had rebuilt, and the Confederate troops burned the light station. So, 1866, they started commissioning a building of a new lighthouse, and much of what you see behind me was a result of that. So, as with any historical site, you're always going to have some kind of literature to read. I highly urge you to take the time to do that when you go anywhere. And here you go, the Tybee Island Lighthouse. A lighthouse on Tybee Island was one of the first public structures in Georgia. Completed in 1736 by William Blithman of cedar piles and brickwork, its 90-foot height made it the oldest in America, or the loftiest in America rather. It was destroyed in the storm, which I explained earlier, and was replaced by another built by Thomas Sumner in 1742, which Oglethorpe called much the best building of that kind in America. It was almost entirely rebuilt in 1757 by Cornelius McMarty and James Wimes. In 1773, John Mulrine built the third lighthouse on the third site, and the Mulrine Lighthouse forms the base of the present structure you see now, which was built in 1773. The Mulrine Lighthouse formed the base of the present structure, making it part of the colonial construction. In 1791, Georgia ceded it with 5 acres to the federal government, partially destroyed by the Irish Jasper Greens of Savannah during the Union occupation of the island. It was repaired, and today is one of the famous lighthouses on the eastern seaboard. So yeah, story has it the Confederate troops also burned this, but before they did, they took out the Fresnel lenses. That is the lens at the top of the lighthouse, and saved it. And then they come back later, repaired the lighthouse, and you see what you do now today. So you can see all these structures on the grounds. Of course, it is closed today. We're going to see a little bit of it, but we can't go into anything. But let's take a look. So one cool thing about this lighthouse I just found out, or not rather the lighthouse, but the area it's in, is what you see behind me, this Endicott period structure from the Spanish-American War, the Endicott period. This is Battery Brumney from it was built 1898, and it was part of Fort Screven. Looks like you can't go in there, but it says a severe weather safe site. Huh. So even to this day, I guess it still stands strong, even though it was built during the Endicott period. But you see a lot of this at Fort Morgan, and it looks like here they incorporated these coastal defenses in here as well. Now, as you can see, it is closed on Tuesdays, so you can't really go into the light station on Tuesday, which stinks. But the reason why I chose to come today is for one reason. I want to get some aerial views of this lighthouse. Now, as you go anywhere, you always got to remember, watch out for these bad boys. If you're a pilot like me, these things will wreck your day. So always look out for them. But we're going to go in, see what we can see, get up in the air, and give you some aerial views of one of the most historic lighthouses in America. So I was looking for a way I can at least maybe read some placards, but you know, there's some placards I can see in the distance around the lighthouse base itself. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like there's any way to even do that unless it's open and you go inside, which is okay because it's worth it for what we're able to do today, which is get up in the air, get some aerial views of the lighthouse itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather up some equipment, and we're going to take a look at this lighthouse from the air. Let's do it. So this is Tybee Island Lighthouse, and yeah, pretty cool. So before we get out of here, just had another little cool thing I wanted to show you about Fort Screven that we were seeing a minute ago with the Endicott period batteries here. And it says the legislature of Georgia in 1786 passed a law providing for a fort on the Cockspur or Tybee Island to be named in honor of General James Screven, a Revolutionary War hero. It was never built by the state. In 1808, the federal government obtained jurisdiction over the property on Tybee Island, now known as the Fort Screven Reservation. Actual title was acquired in 1875 and post established in 1898 during the Spanish-American War period and Endicott period. It was continuous use from the Spanish-American War through both world wars, primarily as a coastal artillery fort, and at one time Fort Fremont in South Carolina was under its jurisdiction. It became an infantry post and finally a school for deep sea diving. Many distinguished officers saw duty here, including General George C. Marshall as colonel in command. In 1945, Fort Screven, after World War II, was declared a surplus by the War Department and acquired by the town of Savannah Beach. So, pretty cool. This is Battery Garland, built in 1899 here at Fort Screven, and is now home to the Tybee Island Museum. So if you're here, come check it out.